Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Logical Nonsense Podcast, and welcome to the first ever music award show. We've got Honeybee Reviews on. We know we got to get the experts on here. He's going to be going over a variety of different genres, and then we're both going to break down hip hop together. Honeybee, how have you been, man? It's been a minute, but this is your third appearance on this platform. Very excited to have you on.
I'm stoked to be back. It's always a lot of fun. And this year specifically, like
Yeah,
2024 for new music releases rivals
a lot of years,
a
a
lot of
lot of
years.
great
Like
years.
I
Yeah.
think back to 2016 is like the last
Yeah,
time where I think you could compare the both. So I'm
yeah,
stoked to talk about, all the great music that came out this year.
totally, totally. No, I mean, it was a great year to your point, and a lot of big artists dropped. I mean, we got Tyler, we got Kendrick, we got freaking Future, J. Cole dropped. I mean, all the big names it felt like dropped
You
this
got
year,
everybody.
and yeah, I mean, it was huge in terms of hip hop, and even outside of hip hop, which we're gonna get into just a sec. I mean, it was huge there too. So it's gonna be a very interesting Grammys when we get there.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to break it down for you. Let's start with the pop genre. A lot of different, artists rose to fame. Charlie XCX. You got Sabrina Carpenter. She had a big year. Who is your pop album of the year?
My pop album of the year has to go to Brat. I mean,
Yeah,
just culturally, it was so prevalent,
yeah,
but musically too. Like
yeah,
it's good. It's one of the best produced albums of the year, and a lot of people will recognize, a lot of the bangers on that album because it really is. It's just banger after banger after banger and
yep,
club classics, right?
totally,
But it also has the emotional depth that's what sets it apart from the rest, is that
yep.
there are some moments that are just like so well written and so vulnerable that there's something for everybody on that album.
Totally, totally. What were some of your nominees going into this category specifically? What made you choose this album over the others?
So a couple others. I mean, this year it was hip hop and pop. Like
Yeah,
those two genres, they just were phenomenal this year.
yep.
And so there were lots of different pop albums that I loved. One that I really liked was the Magdalena Bay album. I don't know if you listened to that Imaginal
I
Disc,
have
but
not, no.
it's more for like the music nerds. It
Yep,
was really, really cool. It's actually a conceptual album, fantastic production. And so that one was the one that I was like kind of debating between the two. But
yep,
what took it for me is that Brat, it did this thing culturally where it also just it has the numbers, the sales, the popularity in the mainstream as well as kind of the underground. Like
yeah,
the music heads love it, but also the casual listeners love it. And that's
totally.
kind of the
That's hard to
baseline
get.
for
That's
an
hard to get,
incredible
yeah.
album.
Yeah, no, I love the, thought process there, and I'm sure later on when we get into hip hop, you'll see that I had a very similar process on my album
Okay,
of the year. So,
cool.
let's go into pop artist of the year. Does it go to Charlie XCS with the pop album of the year?
It does not, actually.
Oh, okay. I
Charlie
like
did have
this.
a great year, but it really was the album, and then she did the SNL thing too. Like, that was kind of it for Charlie, which was awesome for her, and she deserved it. But my pop artist of the year is Sabrina Carpenter,
Yeah,
because not only did she also have a great album that kinda blew up, she actually was similar with Charlie, where they both have been making music for a long time, but their albums this year were the ones that kinda just, for whatever reason, took
accelerated.
off.
Yeah,
So Short and Sweet blew up, but on top of that, she also toured with Taylor Swift on the Eras tour, the
yep,
biggest tour ever. Like it just
yep,
is.
yep.
And then on top of that, she also had the Christmas special that came out just a couple weeks
Mhm.
ago, and I actually didn't really enjoy it, but still very cool.
Yeah. No, I like it. I mean, she's had an incredible year. I mean, there's been a lot of fans of her that have rose above, and I mean, I feel like she's just really branded herself in a
Yeah,
way that a lot of different artists haven't been able to do, which
exactly.
is huge. I mean, when you talk about artists of the year, it's not always just like what album they dropped or what singles they dropped, but it's also I think partially due in how they brand themselves and kind of put themselves out there. And I think she did a great job of kind of doing that this year and establishing herself in that world for the pop music fans.
she was all over the place. So
Totally.
that
Totally.
that kinda does it for me.
Totally. All right, well, let's go into country album of the year.
My country album of the year is $10 Cowboy by Charlie Crockett. It's,
Okay.
Charlie Crockett actually also has been making music for a really long time.
Yep.
This album didn't blow up the way that Brat or Simple and Sweet did,
Yep.
but it's perfect for me. His vocal tone is just gorgeous.
Yep.
The writing is there, and it just feels like old country music. Like, it's not twangy or poppy.
Yep.
It's like that Johnny Cash old western. You're picturing a cowboy riding off on his horse in the desert while you're listening to it, and for that reason, I love it.
Yeah. No, a lot of country fans too, I'm sure will appreciate that, especially the deep country fans, because I know a big complaint from country fans is just that it's kind of moving into more of a pop country in that sense. So I'm sure listening to this album is a bit of a refreshment for those country listeners.
Yeah.
All right, who's your country artist of the year?
Charlie Crockett. Yeah,
Charlie
he
Crockett
had that
again.
album, and then he also had actually another album released too, and they both were good, and they have my favorite, country songs of the year on that album. I thought about putting Beyoncé in here, but
Ooh,
it
okay.
felt like cheating a little
What
bit.
about Post Malone?
I actually did enjoy the Post Malone album. I know
Mixed
a lot
reviews.
of people didn't, yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of diehard country fans didn't love it because, like you
Yep.
said, it's a little poppy at times, but typical Post Malone fans also didn't love it because it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this isn't pop
Much
or hip
different,
hop,
yeah.
so but for me, I just was a fan of the album, I thought it was good, I liked the features, and yeah, I liked it.
Any other shout outs for either album or artist of the year?
No.
No, none other. All right, well, let's go into rock album of the year for you.
I'm gonna have to go with Vampire Weekend's "Only God Was Above Us."
Okay.
Really nice indie rock record. Vampire Weekend's been one of my favorite bands since, like, junior high, high school, and this album, it kinda feels like their magnum opus in a way. I don't know, they caught fire with it. There's tons of different sounds, tons of different live instrumentation, and the vocals are as good as they have ever been on a Vampire Weekend album, in my opinion.
All right. Any other albums that you considered here?
Yeah, there were a lot of great rock albums this year. Um, Kinda going into this, my rock artist of the year is The Cure. They
Okay.
released a really great album this year, and that is so hard to do this late into their career,
Totally.
and so I was thoroughly impressed with that. It's very atmospheric, um, just a really good listen, and so I considered that album, I really liked it, and by the way, I am gonna have so much content up on my page soon of my top 10 indie albums of the year, my
Yeah,
top 10 rock albums, my top 10 pop
totally.
albums, hip hop. So, if you're interested in that, you can check it out on
Yeah,
social.
shout out. Go check him out. He's got good content coming out pretty much daily. I mean, you post a lot, so
I've been grinding lately.
yeah. End of year stuff is fun to do, so
It
I love
is,
it.
yeah.
All right, you kinda already just went over your rock artist of the year. Anything else to say about The Cure?
No, not
Okay.
really.
All right, well, let's go to R&B artist of the year.
I think it has to go to Tommy Richmond,
Yeah, I
which
like it.
yeah, I know maybe some real classic R&B heads aren't gonna love that, but he had one of the biggest hits of the year. His
Yep.
album is a really underrated
I
album.
agree.
I
I agree.
consider
I
a lot
really
of
enjoyed it.
people yeah, they kinda just didn't listen to it, it seems like for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't wanna check it out after, $1,000,000 Baby was such a hit. That's why I think he's artist of the year. I mean, he also was all over the place.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was all over the place. I think he had 2 really great mainstream with great mainstream hits with, Million Dollar Baby as well as Devil Is a Lie, and I
Yeah,
actually really enjoyed his album. I actually thought it was good, and it's aged on me really well too.
yeah,
Like, it's something I continue to have in my rotation,
me too.
and I enjoy it. I mean, it continues to grow on me, and there's even songs that initially I didn't necessarily love, and now they're growing on me even more. So I really like that take there. What's your R&B album of the year?
It is Born in the Wild by Thames.
Okay,
Really beautiful R&B Afropop record, and her vocals are just phenomenal, out of this world.
okay. What were some other considerations for album of the year as well as artist of the year?
For artist of the year, I did consider Thames also. She was pretty busy this year. An underrated artist is Lila. She
Okay.
released an album called Gap Year,
Yep.
which was really cool. It's more like a alternative R&B album. Another one that I loved was Mutt by Leon Thomas,
Okay.
and there's some really good features on there, including one of my favorite features of the year, from Freddie Gibbs was really
Yeah.
good on that album. So those are kind of my considerations for the year.
Okay. I like it. I like it. All right. Well, now we jump into hip hop. We can go back and forth. I talked about the nominees. Starting with newcomer of the year. You've done a lot of talking, so I can take this one. You just gave it to R&B artist of the year. I'm giving him newcomer of the year. I'm going Tommy Richmond.
All
Some
right.
people I considered also was Big X the Plug. He's had a huge year. I also considered that Mexican OT as well as Four Bats. I went with Tommy Richmond, just kind of what echoing what you said. I just feel like he had a huge year. I thought his album was extremely underrated. And he kind of mixes the two between rap and R&B. He's definitely leaning, I would say, more towards R&B, but I I mean, he just had a huge year. He kinda came out of nowhere, and I mean, I really am interested to see what direction he goes to because he kinda brings almost like this '80s feel to a
Yeah,
lot of his music, which I actually really enjoy the influence there, and I'm very excited to see what he'll do going forward with his music, and what direction he goes, but he had a huge year, and I gotta give him props for that, so
that's a great take. And one thing I will say in response to that is Tommy Richmond's one of those artists that is a true creative. Like he is in it for the art.
totally.
And so you mentioned that he had two of the biggest hits of the year, Million Dollar Baby, Devil Is a Lie. He didn't put either of them
Yeah,
on the
which I really
album.
loved.
I loved
I
it too.
loved
And
it.
obviously that there's a downside of that, right? I
Yep,
mentioned lots of people didn't listen to the album, and I think
yep.
it's because of that. If those two songs were on the album, they probably would have checked out the rest of the album. But
Totally.
as far as just him doing what he wants to do creatively, that's what I really respect in an artist. And so that's just something that I love too about Tommy Richmond.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I remember, that was huge talk of him not putting there on there because your sales go way up when you include those types of singles on your
Of
album, and
course.
he didn't really care about the sales. He just wanted that creative process to really speak for itself, and honestly, when you listen to that album, I don't think they necessarily fit on that album, which
Right.
I appreciate,
Yeah.
big time. So, who is
I
your newcomer of the year?
My newcomer of the year has to be Doechii. I mean,
Ooh, okay.
she
So
just, like, is on fire.
yes, and I also considered her the reason I did not give it to her was because I know she's been making music for a little bit, and I
Yeah.
wasn't
She
sure if that was kind of a degrade, so that's why I did not include her, otherwise, I definitely would have had her as newcomer of the year.
Yeah, and we could have, I guess, clarified that, but I kinda considered it in the ways that the
Totally.
Grammys do, like,
Yep,
for Best New Artist, for example, Doechii definitely would qualify for something like that, so that's why
totally,
I kinda thought that, but she had one of the best albums of the year
totally.
across all genres, not just
Yep,
hip hop.
yep,
She had a great feature on the Tyler album.
yep.
She just, like, is everywhere.
Killed it
She
this
did the
year.
Tiny Desk that everybody's loving because she had these lush, uh, full or instrumentation with the jazz arrangements on the Tiny Desk
Yeah.
that's just incredible, and she is one of the best rappers out right now.
I agree. I agree. Another person I'm super excited to see where she brings her music because I agree. The album hit. The album is super fun. I mean, it's got so many different levels and like different ways it brings you through like emotions. That's the word I'm looking through. I mean, she's got her hard, heavy, ferocious types of flows that she brings, and then she can also be kind of more emotional, which I can appreciate in an artist. Versatility is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing in what she does. So, who were your other newcomer, nominees that you had?
I really was only thinking of Doechii,
Doechii?
if I'm being
Yeah,
honest,
okay,
but
I like it.
that's just, like that's just who I really listened to a lot this year as far as kind of like a newer artist. I don't know if you would consider Kenny Mason a newcomer of the year.
Yeah,
He's kind
yeah,
of been
yeah.
making music for a while too, but he had 2 releases this year, and
Mhm.
both of them were, like, some of my favorites of the year.
Yep.
So I'm really excited to see what he does also.
Yeah. No, Kenny Mason's another great one. He's kind of also another artist, in my opinion, who's kind of blending different genres, right? Like we've heard that rock influence in his music, which I really
Yeah.
like to hear. And he's just another creative that I think brings such a different sound and can do so much with his voice, which I really appreciate. So, all right, well, let's go to old head of the year. We'll start with you. Who do you got? And just to clarify for the listeners, this is anybody 40 years or older in the rap game, hip hop game, still in it, still making bangers. Who do you have for old head of the year?
So I feel like I cheated a little bit,
Okay.
but it's Future. He's 41.
Oh, I did not know this. See, if
I
I
know.
would have known this, I would have
People
also gone
I know.
Future.
People don't anticipate Future to be 41, but,
That's crazy. I
um
had no idea.
I know. So I know. I kind of feel like I cheated a little bit there because not only is he old hit of the year, but he's in contention for MVP in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, yeah.
So I do have a backup, and it is Common, who is 52,
Yes.
and he
Okay.
released the Auditorium Volume 1 with Pete Rock,
Yep.
and he's still rapping at such a high level that I had to include him here.
'Kay. Yeah, I like it. I like it. I have him as my one of my nominations. I have Common, I have Lupe Fiasco, I have Kanye, I have The Alchemist, and I have Eminem. This one's tough for me. I think I'm gonna go with Lupe Fiasco. I like Samurai. I like the
Yeah,
concept of it. It was very interesting. I think I would have liked to see him. I think there's an argument, maybe a little bit more music, maybe a little bit more rollout, but I just don't think Lupe is that kind of artist
yeah,
in
he's
terms
not.
of like he has his respect from the music heads, from the hip hop heads, right? But I just really thought it was a sound conceptual album, and I really enjoyed listening to it. So I'm gonna go with Lupe here. I think there's arguments for Eminem. I know a lot of Eminem fans liked what he brought out. Kanye had it. I don't know. I liked Vultures one, Vultures two, but I mean, um, overall, I think there's still some really great and Common, like you said, echoing what you said. I mean, he did a great job and is rapping at a high level still. So those were my nominees. I'm gonna go with Lupe Fiasco.
Yeah, it's a great take. Lupe's at that point, and he's been at this point for a while where when he drops music, people listen. Like,
Yep.
he doesn't need a rollout, he doesn't need anything. People just will tap in
Hmm.
and listen to what he has to say, and I agree that Samurai was a really cool album.
Yeah, I liked the concept with Amy Winehouse and all that, so
I
it's
know, it's
cool.
so interesting. Like, only Lupe could even think of that, like,
Yeah,
right?
I
Like,
know.
no one else would even attempt something like that, but,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess maybe Kendrick. Lupe and
Yep,
Kendrick kinda
yep,
they're
totally,
kinda on the same level conceptually there.
totally. Alright, well, we're going to a big award here. Song of the Year. Who do you got? What do you got?
I've got Luther, Kendrick and SZA.
Ooh, I love it. I
It
love
came
it.
out pretty recently, but, like, I still am listening to it, like, twice a day at least. I don't I don't know, it just has a chokehold on me. It's
It's
so good.
beautiful. It's
It's so good.
beautiful. The vocals in the background, the way Kendrick changes his tone to kinda match the vibe, and then you got SZA on top of it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a beautiful song and something that continues to replay for me as well. I love the take. Um, do you wanna go over your other considerations here before I give mine?
Sure, yeah. I hope I don't take yours, but my other considerations as far as hip hop goes, Not Like Us has to be in this conversation. It literally took over the year. When you look back on 2024, you're gonna think of Not Like Us more than probably any other track. I
Totally.
just prefer Luther musically, so that's why I
Yeah,
have it there.
I respect the take.
Um, and then my 3rd hip hop pick would have been Walk On By, No Worries with
Ooh,
Earl Sweatshirt. I love that track. I've been
great.
listening to it ever
Yeah.
since it came out, like, all the time. Earl has such a great feature, and it's just dope, I
That
think.
album's dope. That album's really cool. I really like that album a lot. Alright, for my song of the year, you just said it, Not Like Us. I just think, like you said, when you look at 2024 and you think about the songs, Not Like Us is one of those songs that, like, you have to think about when you think about 2024, and what's so incredible about it is it's a diss track.
Yeah.
Who makes a diss track as mainstream as it is like Kendrick, right? And in my opinion, he's almost playing into a world that Drake usually plays in, right? That
Yeah.
more of that Main Street, more of that poppy hip hop, and he makes it such a big like, it is just one of those songs that is so replayable. Obviously, some people might say it's too replayable, and I don't know if people will like this take at all, with Not Like Us, because I feel like people are almost tired of the song, but it's such a banger. Like, it just
Yeah.
is. Like, it's not even subjective at this point. It's like objectively just a banger. And
Yeah.
I just think what Kendrick did on this, and with the amount of time he had too, right? Like, it's just only he can do it. There's very few artists that with limited time can make a song like that and make it so popular and
Yeah.
so well received by everyone. I mean, casual listeners, hip hop heads, like it is one of those songs that I think will live on as one of his best. So,
Yeah.
um, for other considerations, I had Black and Blue by Vince Staples. I
Yeah,
had
that's a
Either
great
On
one.
and Off Drugs by JPEG Mafia. I had Darling I, Tyler the Creator. TV Off, which recently came out by Kendrick. I also had Denial is a River by Doechii,
Let's go.
and then Red Rum and Nina by 21 Savage.
Those are great picks. Good
So
nominations.
those were my nominations. Went with Not Like Us, just purely off influence and perception. So,
For that reason, do you think that Not Like Us is the best diss track of all time?
oh, it's tough, man. I think you can make an argument for it. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's the best. It's catchy. It's more of that pop, but in terms of like pure mean diss tracks, I don't think it's like crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like one of like it's not to me. It's not like a No Vaseline by Ice Cube,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, you don't think that off the top of your head, but Kendrick literally had people in the clubs yelling
True.
that Drake is a P
Pedophile.
word. I don't wanna
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know I don't know if this is gonna mess up your algorithm.
No, no, no. I
Um,
mean, yeah,
but he literally had people in the clubs yelling that out as they're dancing, like, that's kinda
that's true.
wild, bro.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an argument for it. I think you could definitely argue that it's the best diss track of all times. Yeah. So, all right, let's go to most memorable moment of the year. I
For
can start
me
this one
okay,
if
yeah,
you'd
go
like.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So, for me, I'm laying in bed and it's when Kendrick drops Meet the Grams
That was
right
crazy,
after
bro.
Drake drops his diss track to respond. I think that is a moment that I will never forget because I was just like, what is happening? I've never seen two artists come out, one diss track, one after another, and then that. Because it was so mean. It was so ferocious. It's so dark. It's one of those moments in time where I'll never forget. And I think when I look at back at the 2024 year and all the diss track stuff, that to me was like, oh my God. I think Kendrick just freaking like solidified him as winning this freaking battle because it was just mean, ferocious. Obviously, there's some stuff with like, is it true? You know, that kind of thing. But in terms of just response, like an hour before, and he's responding to things that Drake just said.
Yeah, dude,
So
it's
it's like,
nuts.
how in the hell did he come out with a song like this that quickly? That's my most memorable moment. I think there's some arguments for others, but let me hear your most memorable moment.
Mine was like that
Okay.
when
Yes, that was my second. That was my
okay.
second. Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know, man, like, that's just kind of the verse that really
Took
ignited
off.
everything.
Yep.
Like, you heard that verse and you're just like, "Okay, Kendrick, first off, he's the best rapper alive right now." Like,
Yep.
it's you can't debate it after that
Yep.
verse, and then that's before he did all the other stuff, right? And so,
Yeah.
that's my first thought, and then my second thought is, "Dude, we like, this is about to blow up. We're gonna see something happen here."
Yep.
And so and not only that, but, like, it's just a great track, like,
It is.
I
It
love
was
that
a
song.
really good
It
track, yeah.
it was awesome. And so for me, that was, like, my defining moment in hip hop in 2024.
Totally. No, and I mean, you get a J. Cole album out of it, you get I mean, just look at the effect, right? Like, all the they talked about $15 million in revenue just between all that diss track stuff, like,
Yeah.
that's nuts, and that's the track that started it all because of, you know, F the big 3, it's just Big Meat, like, all that whole entire verse, just because of that, it started, so I think that's
Yeah.
another great moment for hip hop this year, and I totally respect that moment as well. Alright, well, let's go to best lyrical work.
Okay. So a couple of my nominees here. I had Doechii on her
Yep,
album and her year.
yep,
Kendrick obviously is in the running, I think, just with everything that he did.
yep.
But my number one pick is Denzel Curry on King of the Mischievous
Ooh,
South.
I like it.
He
I like
just
that
like
one.
he was finding these different pockets that it just seems like he's one of the best in the game right now at just finding these different pockets and different flows and different deliveries, and he's hitting these punchlines, like checking all the boxes and what you want to hear on a hip hop album. And it kind of is like not so much an album, it's more mixtape vibes, which is
I
perfect
loved it.
for someone that
I
just
loved it.
loves lyrical work, right?
Yeah.
And so that's my pick.
I love the pick. I think Denzel Curry has been hitting album after album. If you want to consider this a mixtape, so be it. It was still great. It's definitely in my playlist, and like you said, the punchlines are great. And he just does a phenomenal job of creating music and excellent work. So I appreciate the credit that you're giving him because he had another artist that I think had a great year, and I loved that album as well. So my best lyrical work, some considerations I had: Samurai, Chromacopia, Dochi's album, which oh my gosh, I'm forgetting it. Alligator Bites. Why am I forgetting the name?
Never heal.
Thank you. Alligator
Alligator
Bites
bites
Never
never heal.
Heal. But I ultimately went with Dark Times by Vince Staples. I love this album. I think it was very vulnerable. I think Vince Staples was kind of really reflecting a lot on this album, a lot of self-reflection, and there's some really great tracks that I think emulate that. One of my favorite songs, like I said earlier, was Black and Blue, and I think that's a perfect example of what that body of work really showed, and I wanna give Vince Staples his credit there. So I'm going with Dark Times by Vince Staples.
I'm so happy that for some reason this is the album that people are loving from Vince Staples. He's been
Yep.
making like
No, I mean,
such
he's
high
been in it
quality
for
work for
a while, yeah,
years. I'm just happy that people are recognizing it, and like I'm seeing Vince Staples on a lot of end of year lists. Well deserved. Great pick.
totally, totally. Alright, best feature of the year. There's some really great features this year. Who do you got?
I got Doechii on Balloon
Oh,
on
okay.
Chromacopia. I don't know why. Like I love that verse. She
Okay.
just is so good on it. And I think that she fits the track perfectly because she kind of is like, I don't know how else to describe it, but she's kind of Broadway, like the
Mhm.
way that she performs.
Yeah,
Like she's very animated,
totally.
and it just works on the bubbly production of Balloon, which is like a lighter moment on the album after some
Yep.
heavy stuff. It's much needed at that point in the album. And so you just hear Doechii come on, and I've been a Doechii fan for a few years now, so I was really excited to see her on like such a big album,
Yep.
one of the biggest albums of the year, obviously. And I think she delivered. She stepped up to the plate and smacked that thing out of the park.
Totally. No, I think that's a great take, a great feature for sure. What other features did you have in consideration? I know I've seen on your channel that Freddie Gibbs feature on, oh my god,
Back to Me,
Back to Me.
dude. I
Was that in
love that feature.
consideration?
I love it. It was, yeah. That's one of my
Because
favorite
I
features
also
too.
love that feature, and it was in my consideration, so I
It's
was
so
super
good.
glad you gave a highlight to it because I was like, "People aren't talking about this
They
feature enough."
really
Like, it
aren't
was
because people
oof.
like it's really cool and mainstream to just hate vultures right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I get it.
There's
There's
some
some
good
low
tracks on
moments,
there.
but there are some high moments too. Like
Totally.
what he should have done is combine Vultures 1 and Vultures 2
I
and
agree.
just made a
I agree.
solid album, gotten rid of all the excess fat and trimmed that thing down. But yeah, like that Freddie Gibbs feature, for example, is so good. And then the other one, obviously, you can already guess it's Kendrick on like that. That's
Yep.
the other feature that is in my
Yep.
consideration. Those are my top three probably for right now.
Okay. For my best feature, I gotta find it on my list real quick. Alright, so I've got in consideration, I got Freddie Gibbs verse on Back to Me. I've got Mexican OT on Black Flag Freestyle. I love
Yeah,
that
it's a good
verse.
feature.
I think it's so animated. I love the way he rolls his tongue throughout it too. Like it's just nuts what he can do on that verse. I've got Travis on Red Rum or not Red Rum.
Nina?
Nina, thank you. I know we've kind of gone back and forth on this. That's very interesting. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a sec. I've got J. Cole on Red Leather, and I got Kendrick's verse on Like That. I ended up going with J. Cole on Red Leather.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. I'm so glad you love that as
I
much as I do.
love that verse. I think it is so refreshing after we heard a J. Cole album, which I liked overall. I liked it, but I think we can all agree it's not J. Cole's best work.
Yeah.
It was very refreshing to hear him voice fluctuate, his little melodies that he brings in, and the way he kind of matches and talks about, having all these different women like Future does, and like I just love the kind of mindset and tone that he brings on that verse, and it was on repeat for me for a long
Me
time.
too.
I think it
It's
was
probably my most listened to song off of either of the Future albums.
yes, it was an incredible song, and I think his feature is a big reason why I continue to go back on that song, and so that's the verse that I went with.
That's a great pick. That song's like 6 or 7 minutes long. I
Yeah.
listened to the whole thing because you
Oh,
have to
dude,
listen to
it's
that
so
verse,
good.
like, it's just
It's so good.
so good. I agree. I'm so glad you picked that. I didn't
Yeah.
know people I don't see anybody talking about that verse.
No,
I don't know
right?
why.
Right? No, I think it's an incredible verse. Like it is nuts what he did on that. So I think it's his best verse of the year that he had on any feature or
Yeah.
on any song this year. So
I
um
yeah, great pick.
all right, let's go to Soundscape of the year. This was kind of my approach at kind of like a good, I guess, good produced album, or you could say like just an interesting soundscape, something that you're not used to hearing. So I wanted to clarify that before I give it away to you. What do you have as best soundscape of the year?
So, an honorable mention is "I Lay Down My Life for You," JPEG Mafia.
Yes,
Rap
yes,
metal is back, and he just,
yeah, he killed
combines
it.
the 2 genres
He
so
killed it.
so I really like that. But overall, the best soundscape for me comes off of Chromacopia.
Ooh, I like it.
Uh,
Okay.
so this is the thing about Chromacopia is people forget that Tyler is the one, producing these songs.
Yeah,
So, not only is it such a great album, but Tyler freaking did the whole thing himself.
yeah,
It's just amazing the ear that he has, and he
yep,
tried out some different sounds on this album. It's
yep,
got a lot more horns than any of his previous albums. It's very jazzy, very
yeah.
kind of stomp the yard type
I was gonna
feel,
say, yeah, yeah.
and so, for me, it works. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, no, I like that pick a lot. I think, in terms of production, it sounds very interesting. It's very unique. That's what I love about Tyler and his
Yeah.
albums is every album sounds unique.
Yeah,
Like you've
totally.
never, I've never been somebody when I listen to Tyler, like it's very easy in my opinion to decipher what song comes off of what album because of the soundscape that it brings.
Yeah.
It's consistent, but it goes in all different directions. But I think the core of the albums are always like consistent, like I said. So I really like that take on Chromacopia. Some nominees for my soundscape of the year. Like you said, I also had I Laid Down My Life for You by JPEG Mafia. I had a Hardstone Psycho with Don Tolliver. Just I thought it was very interesting, unique in terms of like blending the rock and kind of the hip hop and kind of the pop. I have We Don't Trust You. I thought that was very interesting soundscape as well. Ultimately, and I think this might shock you, I went with Across the Tracks with Boldy James and Conductor Williams. I felt like that track was very fun to listen to. Conductor kind of just go into his element. I love that album. And I thought it was very well produced, and I felt like Boldy sounded really, really nice on Conductor Williams beats, so that's where I went there.
Yeah, they're a great match.
So,
It's a little surprising, but, I agree, it's a very well produced album, so I'm not mad at the take at all. I think it's
okay.
great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's this is a great segue to producer of the year. I can start this one. For producer of the year, I had Conductor Williams, I had Metro Boomin, I had JPEG, I had Tyler the Creator, and I had DJ Mustard. I think you could make a take for any of those
Yeah,
guys. I
you
think they all
definitely
had
can.
really, really great years. But ultimately, I'm gonna go with Metro Boomin. The reason being is he had two really well produced albums with We Don't Trust You and We Still Don't Trust You. And I think the influence he had in terms of production, and what he continues to bring to production is just insane. He's been on a generational run, in my opinion, and I think I got to give him credit there. Like I said, there's an argument for any one of those guys. I think all of those guys had fantastic years in terms of producing, and I would not be mad if you're mad at my Metro Boomin take.
No, I 100% agree with you. Like the entire take, and Metro's my producer of the year as well. Like I
There we
totally
go.
agree with you. Can't argue with it at all. And the only thing that I might add is he also had some other work on other projects. Like some of my
Totally.
favorite songs on the 21 Savage album are the
Yep.
Metro produced songs.
Yep.
And yeah, he put that work in. It's always high quality, and he deserves his flowers for sure.
Did you have any other considerations that I did not mention?
No, you nailed it. 100%.
Okay. All right. Well, I love it. I love it when we agree.
Yeah,
It's
me too.
great. All right. Let's go to album of the year. One of the biggest questions in hip hop right now, especially as we near the end of 2024. What was the album of the year? What do you got?
So, hmm. I don't know how much I should share here because I'm gonna be having my content come out soon. I put together I have a list of my top 50 hip hop albums of the year.
Yep. I saw that.
And so maybe I'll just give you my top 5 here.
Okay. That's fine.
And I'm not gonna give them an order except for I will give you my number 1.
Okay.
So, not in order. I really liked We Don't Trust You featuring
Yep.
Metro Boomin. I love GNX by Kendrick Lamar.
Absolutely.
I've already mentioned I loved Chromacopia as well,
Yep.
and I talked about already that I loved Kenny Mason's both of his albums. I preferred 9,
Yep.
but my hip hop album of the year is Why Laud by No Worries. It's just
Oh, I love it. I love
infinite
the
replay
take.
value. It checks all my boxes.
Okay.
It's very well produced. Knowledge is one of my favorite producers right now, and Anderson .Paak, I mean, he does his thing. He sings, he raps. It's great. It's got good features. It's the best sequenced album of the year. I'm sorry, West Side Gun fans that are going to argue with me that
Yeah.
his was better sequenced, but Why Lot is the best sequenced album of the year. It's in perfect order, and it just like each track builds upon the last. It's gorgeous. I love it.
Yes. I love your Anderson .Paak stand coming out, and yeah, I love that album. Like I said, it's definitely in my replay, and it was a great album from top to bottom. Like you said, the sequence was great, how they transition in one another, and it brings so much versatility, in my opinion. So it's a great album and a great choice. Some considerations. I had to narrow it down. My considerations for my top five: We Don't Trust You, GNX, Chromacopia, like you just said. I also have I Lay Down My Life for You, as well as Dark Times. Some other considerations that were just outside my top five. I have Blue Lips. I have Kings of the Mischievous South 2, Alligator Bites Don't Heal, and American Dream. I ultimately went with We Don't Trust You. The reason being is I don't think it's the best album. I'm going to say that right now. I don't think it's the best album, but in terms of influence, in terms of rollout, in terms of the mainstream popularity, in terms of the effect, I think it is the best album in that sense. I think there's a lot of great highs on this album. I think there's some not bad lows, but I think there is some lows on it. But overall, I think it is again, when you look at 2024 and you think of albums, I think that is an album you will always think of is We Don't Trust You and just everything that stirred from it. I mean, you get tracks like Cinderella, like you get tracks like oh my god, why am I blanking? Like that, you get I mean like type shit. Like there's so many great tracks on this and I think there's also even the intro, "We Don't Trust You," I think is a great song. So I think there's just a lot of versatility on it. I think Future did a great job with Metro Boomin and collaborating in there and bringing on great features as well. and making sure that his features bring out the most. So I just think it's a great album. I really, really highly considered Chromacopia or GNX. I think those have great arguments,
Yeah.
and are really great albums. Blue Lips, I do wanna discuss with you because neither one of you had it in our top 5, and a lot of hip hop people love that album.
Yeah.
Curious, I'm gonna listen to your takes on Blue Lips before I give mine. Why isn't it in your top 5?
It's not so much like what the album lacks. It's
Yep,
more what do these other albums that we mentioned have
yeah,
that I prefer.
yep,
So We Don't Trust You and Chromacopia, they have a better soundscape. They are
yep,
better produced.
yep,
GNX has that is kind of in the same vein as Blue Lips, right? They're both West Coast hip hop albums, both TDE ties, and GNX just does it better, in my
yep.
opinion.
I agree.
So, what I will tell you is I'm looking at my top 50 hip hop albums right here. People aren't gonna love it. I have it at 24. I know
Blue
people have it
Lips?
in their top
Yeah,
5, but for me, I have it at 24, and it's because this is just such a great year for hip hop.
yeah,
There's gonna be good albums like that that don't get talked about as much as other people maybe are talking about them because we all have different tastes, obviously. But it's a great album. It is well produced, and one thing that I will say is that Schoolboy Q, almost better than anybody right now, balances the tightrope on talking about, like, emotional, personal
yep.
stuff, but also the braggadocio, bravado, stuff that you love in hip hop. He kinda toes both sides almost better than anyone
Anybody.
right now in hip hop, so that's something that I really, really appreciate on the album, but I just like other albums more.
I agree.
What about you? What do
I
you think about the album?
I was gonna say, I agree. I think that there are just better albums this year. There was a lot of great music, as we've said multiple times on this podcast. But ultimately, for me, Blue Lips, I liked it, but I didn't love it. Like I'm not like in love with the album. Like to me, like I think there's better Schoolboy Q albums. I think that there's better albums that came out this year. I would consider even something like The Crossroads, which I don't know if I mentioned that yet. I think The Crossroads is better. I think there's better production. I think I just overall I just enjoyed other albums more. It's a good album, but I don't think it's like a great album. Like I don't know. That might be a hot take, but
I'm with you.
I don't think it's that upper echelon of albums from hip hop, in my opinion. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I have a
there are great
playlist.
moments on the album. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong, and I
there
think
are.
there's some
Exactly.
really great tracks, but it's some of the in the middle of those tracks that I was just like, meh, for
Yeah,
me. So,
I
and I
agree.
also like the highs are great, but I don't think they're as great of the highs that I see on Chromacopia or GNX or We Don't Trust You, right? Like I just think there's better highs on better albums or on better on other albums, not
Yeah.
better albums, but yeah.
And better albums.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I'm with you.
all right. Artist of the year. I have a feeling we might have the same one, but
Yeah, it has to be Kendrick. Like, you
yep.
just who else are you even gonna say? Like, nobody did what Kendrick did. Like, he
Yeah.
released his album. He beat one of the most popular hip hop artists of all time in a
Yep.
beef. He made the more mainstream hit, like you mentioned, in the beef.
Yep.
He's doing the Super Bowl. He's doing a world tour with SZA.
Yep.
Like, what are you gonna say, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it has to go to Kendrick, like, for every reason you just said, and I think he's just solidifying him more and more that he is the best hip hop artist in the game right now. Like
I heard someone talking, and I kind of agree. Is right now it kind of feels like he's making this push. Like,
yeah,
you know how for like a presidential campaign, they
yeah,
will really hit it hard. They'll hit all these different states to do these rallies because they're trying to make a
yeah,
push
yeah,
right
yeah,
at the end. It feels like Kendrick is doing a push right now because he wants to be known as the greatest hip hop artist of all time. And I think he has a case already for it,
I
but
do too.
it feels like he's just like putting
Trying to
together his
really
resume
cement
to
it,
say,
yeah,
"Look, this is what I've got. Like,
yeah.
take it or leave it. I'm the best hip hop artist of all time," which he's been saying for years, and I think he does have a case.
Yeah, no, I think he totally has a case, and I think this year just proved that. Like you said, like there are very few artists who can go head to head with an artist like Drake, and in my opinion, like it's very like you will. I mean, 90% of people will say Kendrick won that,
Yeah.
right? Like 90%, which is crazy because there's a lot of Drake fans. And I mean, he just, in my opinion, he blew him out of the water. Like it wasn't close in my eyes. And I mean, Drake had some great diss tracks back. Like I'm not even discrediting what Drake did. Kendrick was just that much better. He was just that much better in his diss tracks. And then he releases an album that some people don't like it. I love it. I think it's a great album. I think, you know, his whole philosophy with like, fuck the conceptual shit. I'm just gonna give a fun album to listen to.
Yeah,
I
man.
love that.
Me
I
too.
love that. I think he needed that in his catalog, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
Especially
agree.
he went so conceptual with Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and I really appreciate that album. But it was refreshing to hear him just kind of rap his ass off for once and kind of just bring those bangers, have the fun stuff, right? Like I'm excited to go watch him and SZA, right? Because TV off, squabble up, those are gonna be so fun to hear.
Yeah, those will be
Reincarnated,
good
whacked
live.
out murals. Are you kidding me? Luther, Gloria, like those are all hits. Like he just it was a hit machine in my opinion, and I loved it. I loved that he can do that. We all know he's capable of doing the conceptual stuff. So why does he need to prove it anymore?
Yeah.
Like he has nothing left to prove. He has nothing like I loved it. I think it was a great transition and yeah, it's got to go to Kendrick. Other artists I do want to shout out who had great years. Future, obviously, great year for him. I
Mhm.
didn't love his last album that he released. I think it was kind of on a lower tier compared to We Don't Trust You and We Still Don't Trust You. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it was a bad album, but it was just not my favorite. Um, I also had Freddie Gibbs, weirdly enough, on
Yeah,
there.
that's a
I
great
think he
take.
had a weirdly really good year in terms of features, and I actually really liked his album that he dropped just
Yeah, me too.
recently. And then I also have JPEG. I think he had a great year, and then Tyler. All artists that had really great years and should be considered for this award. Any other shout outs you want to give out?
No. No, I'm with you. Those are good nominees.
All right. Well, that concludes our awards. It was really fun to talk through all of the awards. We are so close to 300 people or 500 on YouTube. People, please subscribe.
Sweet.
Only need 5 more subscribers to get to 500. Honeybee, where can people find you?
You can find me on TikTok, unless it's getting banned. That's where I post most of my stuff at Reviews Honeybee. I also have started to post on Instagram though, just to try and kind of hedge my bets if TikTok does get banned.
Yep.
I'm on YouTube. I don't use it a lot though. I mostly just kind of repost
Yep.
anything I've got on TikTok and Instagram. I'm on Twitter. If you're interested in random stupid tweets that aren't related to anything. But TikTok and Instagram are kind of my main spots where I just talk music. Um, I kind of specialize in new music coming out each week. I've got a new Music Friday playlist that I update weekly that has like 600, 500 people that follow it and tune in each week. And I make a video each week, kind of giving a recap of everybody that dropped. Got to get my scissor review out soon because
Yep.
that just dropped earlier today. But yeah, got a lot of end of year content coming out. Some interviews, going to be working a festival in the summer, and so should be good.
Yes, please go check him out. Love his content. Definitely will always watch his content if it pops up on my feed. It's some of the best in the game, and you guys need to check him out. So, Honeybee, thank you for hopping on once again. It's always a pleasure having you on. You always bring great insight, great in-depth analysis. So I love chatting it up with you. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. I anytime, like I just don't shut up about music, and that's why I started making content in the first place. So I love talking music with you. It's always a good time.
Yes, sir. I love it. All right. Well, as always, folks, stay logical and rant that nonsense.